actress Susan Sarandon, please. Having two giants like this, you know, the movie industry, what a privilege. Susan, thank you so much, you know, for accepting to answer questions on a matter that we know that is important for you, that is really important.
I thought you had to go somewhere. You don't have to listen to me.
Oh, come on, they all want. They all want. So we know you are a woman who, you know, really dare to speak up. You're someone brave. He said it, we know it. You are brave.
That's very kind, I appreciate it.
And that's true. And you're not afraid to speak up. And so when it comes to injustice, you are always talking about transparency and concrete examples throughout your career. So could you tell us what is for you the most symbolic action that you have done to support equality? Something that matters. Oh, may I say so? Something that you're the most
It's so awkward.
I know.
What you've done. I'd say my proudest moment is having my children and that they still talk to me and want to have dinner and go on vacations. That's my proudest moment. And that they have a sense of humor.
No, all moms know that.
Definitely take credit for that. You know, I'm here to be used. The fact that we can have a group of people together, I guess some of you are journalists. Anybody want to raise their hand who's a journalist? Is this all, so I know where these quotes are all going to be twisted and where they're going to be next. We have connections to help people that are voiceless. We have connections to be able to give information that's not on mainstream media. I'm here to be used in that way. I'm questioning myself. I encourage people to get as much information as possible. If I can go to Lesbos and get film and talk to people that are coming in that, you know, need to be rebranded because they've been talked about as if they're terrorists, and I can get their stories and help tell them on The View. That's not a very, it's not a very creative or necessarily satisfying thing, but I feel that I've been very fortunate, and so that's the least I can do. But like Kevin says, you know, getting a list of what I've done is kind of awkward. I do what I can do, and I hope that it you know, I can cross-pollinate some people when I'm here with other groups that need money or that need press, and that's kind of what we can do. And then in the meantime, you know, I have my job sometimes, and I have my family, and for me, they're not separate. They're just all connected. I'm a storyteller, so I tell some stories that have to do with things that are currently going on, and other stories that people don't know about. I love telling stories about people that are the protagonist in their own lives, ordinary people that end up doing extraordinary things. And encouraging people to, I think the bravest thing you could possibly do is reach out to another person and be intimate with that person and be vulnerable with that person. So I like telling love stories. I love doing Bull Durham because that was a story during which Kevin was so generous when you talk about protecting women, protecting everyone, the director, Tim, myself, was in a position to be the star of that movie and was a star of that movie, but was generous to the rest of us. I like that collaboration. That's what makes me interested, is the storytelling. They can be small parts, they can be big parts. They hardly ever turn out the way you think that they are going to. And very often they're disappointing, or very often they're not sold properly, but I think you just do what you can do and stay curious and keep moving. And so that's I'm proud that at the end of my life, that'll be it.
And I have experienced that. Yesterday night, I didn't know Susan. I was introduced to her very late. I was explaining her that I'm directing this International Women's Rights Day and World Art Day, connecting art and health. And immediately, without thinking, she's giving me a contact, she's giving me the name of this amazing gentleman who's fighting for the memory of this son who died in a shot at the university.
In Parkland.
In Parkland, that you supported.
Did you get the thing I sent you today? Because he was just on the news because unfortunately there's been another shooting and he and his wife went to the school shooting that happened yesterday, I believe. And yeah, so you can get an opportunity to get to know him a little bit through that action.
Definitely.
He's amazing.
And I thank
artist.
you. So that's this notion of special connector that I really like in terms of personality that you have, and this notion that is what more humble position than this. I'm here to be used. Well, we are so grateful, you know, for your useful, words today, and we know how much the word empathy is important for you. And this is something that I would like to ask you about. Image of woman, equality of salary, equality of chance when it comes to financing a movie as a female producer. What do you think should be a priority in terms of, you know, change in the movie industry? I know it's difficult.
I just want to say that one of the things that the bonuses of playing different characters is you have almost an enforced empathy, because you have the opportunity to be another person in another situation which you never thought you would feel or do, and you find out that you have so much in common with so many people, that everybody basically wants the same thing, needs the same thing, is afraid of the same things. And so we have almost enforced compassion by living so many different lives. And you know, as Kevin's talking about, finding out about history too, and identifying with people that you never thought to even think about, and that's like a bonus bingo as far as I'm concerned. So you know, if you stick in the business long enough and tell enough stories, you can't help but develop some kind of exaggerated compassion and empathy for people, because that's your job. Even the worst villain, you know, operates from a place of pain, right? And I think that a lot of the male actors that I really admire, Kevin being one, Joaquin Phoenix, there's so many, have a feminine, what we would identify as a feminine side to them. And I think that being in, and I use this humbly in art, as an artist, gives you the opportunity as a man to embrace that, what we think of as feminine characteristics, and as a woman, what we think of as male characteristics. So I really like that about it. Did I answer any of your questions?
Yes, that was the first half, and you're right. I was trying to go a little bit, I would say, concrete, in order to understand what is the priority when it comes to movie industry. Any idea you would like to
Man, I am so outside of the industry, I couldn't tell you the priority of the industry. I think that we, you know, there's always a struggle between the relationship between commercial and art. And we have an awful lot of bankers now making decisions based on weird things like how many followers you have, or marketing, or looking at these different scores. And I don't think that they have necessarily a love of storytelling. And I don't think they necessarily, their packaging ideas very often have to do kind of from a banker's mind rather than an artistic mind. And it's also one of the few businesses where you're encouraged not to do anything different than what you've already done. Because if you had a profitable shoe, they don't want to boot the next season. They want you to stick to the shoe that made the money. So there's a lot of things working against you to really have the freedom to explore. And I, you know, so again, this link between making money and telling stories is a complicated one. But when I was just recently in Spain, and I was at the Prado, and I was having a fabulous guide that we were going through all the old masters. And even in those days, the painters that got to do the most work were the ones that were most able to wine and dine with whoever the Medicis or whoever was giving the money. They were the people that were most comfortable with what needed to be done to get their money. So I think it's a situation that's as old as time. I don't know about cavemen. I guess they were smarter. In terms of really massive works that need funding, I think you're always up against that in the business, is the way that it's structured. But when you look at sports too, I mean, haven't sports been kind of taken over by corporations?
Yes, so,
yeah.
yes, but so if I follow your reasoning, it means that business, which is like more financed by men, would doubt that a woman-produced movie would be as good as a male-produced movie. Is that correct?
I think that women can imagine themselves, when they see a film where there's a man in power, they can imagine themselves in that place of power, but maybe all men can't see a woman in power and imagine that scenario. So they can't project themselves necessarily on. But I honestly, I don't understand. I can't really speak on the business because I'm not really in it that way. You know, I'm a little bit, I produced Stepmom, and that did really well. I produced, you know, I have produced before. Yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to ask me?
Oh yes, definitely. You know, I wanted to know, you spoke a lot about men that inspired you, but not about women. Who are the women who really inspired you?
Mothers inspire me, as Kevin said. You know, I think that women, when I went off to do Stepmom and I was explaining to my youngest was 5, and I always, when I went to work, explained, once I had kids, why, you know, what the movie was going to be about, and why I was doing it and everything. And I said, this woman dies, and she said, well, you can't die, you're the glue that holds the family together. And I think women are the glue. It's one of the reasons I think women producers are often more direct, because they're problem solving as opposed to ego driven. A lot of complications I've seen on sets have been because of ego problems, either between the leading man and the producers, or the studio, you know, the director and the producers. And women are problem solvers. I don't think that having a vagina necessarily makes you a good person. I don't think a lot of, I mean, when you have Margaret Thatcher and, you know, leaders that are women, it doesn't necessarily mean that their policy is going to be any different, and sometimes it's even worse. So I think choosing leaders now just culturally because of their gender or color is not helpful. But I do think that innately women carry the eggs, and they're the nurturers by, you know, if you're going to generalize. And so I admire mothers. I admire anyone who keeps going and stands their ground and does it with joy. I mean, Sister Helen from Dead Men Walking, she can drink you under the table. You know, she loves life. She's a laugher. She's an eater. She, you know, the people that take on these kind of joy is one of the most powerful weapon. And so the women that I've seen, whether they're aid workers in Lesbos or whether or not they're in Nicaragua during the revolution, or, you know, they were joyful, they were singing and dancing. And so I think we have to hold on to our joy. And I think women that I really respect, that I've seen in taking very brave positions, or just continuing fucking on, you know, against the odds, trying to raise your kids with no money, and you know, in a world that's really tough right now. Also have joy, and so I would say ordinary women doing extraordinary things mostly.
Yes, you were talking about empathy and the capacity you have to embody so many woman characters. So which one really helped you to understand something special about your femininity?
That is such a Sophie's Choice question. You know, I feel like everything, all my parts are part of some new thing that I put in and some new thing that I take out. And all of them torture me and push me somewhere, even the funny ones. I have to choose things that I haven't done before and that are difficult because I think basically I suffer from inertia like everyone else. And if it's too obvious or it's something that I've done, it doesn't interest me enough to stay awake, you know, and I get kind of sloppy and I end up doing things that I have to fight, because usually when I start something, I don't necessarily know what it is, but I know what it shouldn't be, in terms of being derivative or whatever. And Bull Durham was the best part that I had gotten ever in my life up to that time, because Ron Shelton loves women, and because every time that script came to what would be a cliched moment that you'd seen in other triangles, he did something that wasn't expected, and the guys were really, everybody took their turn, you know, when it was Kevin's time to give that incredible monologue, the famous One Slow Kiss monologue. Tim handed it over to Kevin, I handed it over to Kevin if I had a moment, and so I think that was, you know, that relationship and the respect that Ron showed me at that time was very unusual up to that point, and it really was very pivotal for me to have a part that was bigger than I was at that point. I had always been given parts that either nobody else wanted, that needed to be made better, something like that. But Annie was just a really unusual, really funny, smart, kind of weird, fun person.
What would be your message, dear Susan, you know, to young generation?
Oh my God, you're not going to ask me that question.
Please, I'm going to
have to write a book or something with all these things.
Well, whether it could be a quote.
I just tell my kids, if you can be authentic and kind, you've done it. You know, just aim for that. Try to go through life figuring out how to be authentic and how to be kind.
Authenticity and kindness. This is something that we will remember. Thank you so very much.